Hello, good morning for most of you, I assume. Welcome to the Reading League Vermont's first presentation of our Writing is Thinking series, and we're so glad to see you here. I'm Brenda Warren. I'm president of the Reading League Vermont, and I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Leslie Laud. But before I do that, I have one request. If you could please just use the chat for questions instead of conversation, so that we can just see the questions more easily and make sure that we can get some of them answered. And now on to all of what we have been waiting for. Dr. Leslie Laud is Director of Releasing Writers and supports districts and states nationally with strengthening writing instruction. She has taught in both general and special education and worked as a principal. She holds a doctorate from Columbia University and now leads research studies and has served as co-principal investigator and lead principal investigator on federally funded large-scale research studies of writing instruction. Additionally, she publishes empirical studies in peer-reviewed journals, presents frequently at national conferences, and is the author of Executive Skills and Writing Instruction from Guilford Press. Dr. Laud is speaking today on releasing writers, instruction and practice in the metacognitive aspects of writing. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Laud.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come and join us to think more about writing instruction. You are in for a treat. This is a whole series. You're going to have 4 webinars that work together beautifully to raise understandings and carry you the research in practical ways. So I'm very excited to be kicking off this incredible series. And I just want to thank the New Hampshire Reading League so much for hosting this and for putting this series together and to bring all of these wonderful speakers to your teachers. All right, so we are going to dive right in. Writing is an incredibly powerful tool on so many levels. Ultimately, in equipping students with what they need to be able to write effectively, we contribute to their learning power. They can use writing ultimately as a way to make sense of the world, build knowledge, synthesize, and create new knowledge, solve problems that have not yet been solved. Writing offers so much power. And as Zaretta Hammond says, we want to build our students' learning power. And so that is what I'm going to focus on today, how we can build self-regulated, empowered students with writing as a tool in their toolkit. All right, so what I'm going to share with you today is a facet of the science of writing. You're going to hear more pieces of this in the continued sessions. And I'm going to go into primarily composition, touch on some areas of writing, and then those are going to get more fully developed in the following sessions. All right, so to name the elephant in the middle of the room, teachers are most often not adequately prepared for how to teach writing, particularly in what the evidence base shows works. And without that training, we're figuring it out on our own. Teachers are doing an amazing job. Schools I work with every day, teachers will say, yeah, I had figured that out. So there is a lot that teachers are figuring out, but it can be so much easier if we're just explicitly told what the research says and then supported in how we can carry that and make that real in our classrooms so that we don't wind up feeling the frustration that many of us feel unnecessarily because we haven't been prepared. I myself was in that bucket and still am in pockets and areas. We're always continuing to learn, but the evidence-based practices I'm going to share with you today were a game changer. They were life-changing in how I taught. And we need them because only 24% of our nation is writing proficiently. You may have all heard the 33% statistic, which is unacceptable for writing proficiency. The writing crisis is even worse. And why does this matter so much? Reading gives us access. Writing is what gives us power. So I'm here today to bring to you the research that we've had for 50 years. What I'm going to share with you, researchers were looking at this since the 1970s, and it was well developed by the early 1980s, but there have just been a lot of barriers in translating these practices that I'm about to unveil and share with you. They were studied in lab settings, and then schools tested them out, but with heavy researcher support. So it's like the pill was not ready. In the research studies, they were getting gains, but in all of those research studies, the researchers were heavily involved. They were not yet plug and play. And so that is where I come in. What I think of myself as now is the Tylenol dropper. I've gone into the lab, I've found what works, and then I've had multiple large scale studies, IES studies, in order to not create something new, but to take what we know works and make it easier for you to use. So instead of having to be part of the lab and having the researchers in your classroom to make everything work, we just want to make it Tylenol. You just fill it to this level, drop it, and the fever goes down. Likewise, if you use the practices in the way that I'm going to share with you today, writing enjoyment will go up, proficiency will increase, kids will like writing and write better. All right, so I want to start with the good news. There has been a lot of research on how to teach writing, and we have got some real nuggets for you that have been shown to work. And guess who paid for this research? You did. Your tax dollars have been allocated through federal funding to pay for this research. So it's yours, you own it. And the good news is you own it, it's free. So the materials, many of the materials that have been developed, all of the research studies, they're all yours. And so this first free material that I cannot recommend highly enough is the practice guide for teaching writing in elementary school. And this practice guide gathers together everything we know about how to teach writing, puts it into recommendations. And what I'm going to do is we're going to buckle up, get on a flight, and go to different states and see how real teachers in real classrooms are implementing these beautiful recommendations. But these recommendations are free. We will share the links with you at the end, and they gather together everything that we know about the teaching of writing. I'm going to be diving into the writing process, which is number 2. And the next webinars in the series are going to speak again broadly about the writing research, going to address the reading that happens before students write when writing in response to texts, and are going to be looking at teaching students sentence construction and syntax much more deeply, an evidence-based recommendation that we do have insights into how to teach and develop. And yay, I see Nancy Eberhardt, my friend here this morning, yay. I'm gonna touch on syntax a little bit today, but you're going to have deeper dives into this, and it is incredibly important and an evidence-based practice according to the practice guides. If you teach the upper grades, there is a practice guide for you as well. And I can't decide which one I love more. I just love them both. What I love about this one is it talks about the importance of cycles. And we will be diving into how you can run a cycle in your classroom. There are also free materials at my website. And now we're going to look at the kind of growth that you can expect to see when you're using these practices. So what you see here is a student's pre and a student's post. And I would love for you to look at these and then put into chat what kind of growth you see from the pre to the post. Yes, 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 yes. So we're seeing so much of the growth, and I want to, yeah, more details, richer vocabulary. You're hitting it. Um, Shout out to Louisa Moats, who's been one of my greatest mentors, Dr. Charlie Haynes, Young Soo Kim, Dr. Young Soo Kim, for the work that she is doing. I have grown to realize that it is vital to address all levels of language. The practice guides emphasize this. And in this instruction, you see the growth at all levels of language. And a quick plea, please teach all levels of language together and at once. And I'm going to show you how. And it took me 2 decades to really iron out how we can teach all levels. But we can't teach one level and then wait, teach one level and then wait. We would never do that in reading. We wouldn't, work on decoding, but hold back on read alouds. We're teaching all levels of language in reading, and we need to do the same in writing. So you all caught this in the comments. I'm reading through them, and you've described it beautifully. You see all levels of language growth here. You see growth at the word choice level, the first level, smallest grain size. Smallest would be morphemes and phonemes, but they are part of the vocabulary. So that's the first level. The second level, as many of you are commenting on the growth at the syntax level. It took a lot of work, but we got it. We got the student to grow there. And you're seeing growth at the structure, more details, the organization of it, the setup, the conclusion. This beautifully illustrates how spoken language differs from written language. In spoken language, you throw out facts. In written language, because there isn't the back and forth communication, you have to orient, say what you're going to say, and then wrap it up and remind them. So you see that this child has transitioned from what many of you may call BICS and KELP, from basic English language conversation over to academic language. So that transition is being made in the writing, and it's beautiful to watch it. All right, so this is a younger student. Here is an older student. Same thing, same pattern. We are teaching all levels of language. Don't hit one at a time. There is an idea floating around that we should just focus on sentences. Even Writing Revolution, the wonderful Dina, the people who are leading that work have clarified we need to teach sentences and everything all together because we know that their kids are producing paragraphs right away. So we want to teach all the levels of language at once and then watch them grow like pillars. They all rise together. They actually bootstrap each other. And I'm citing Linnea Aries' work around this, that in working on the multiple levels of language at once, they're all bootstrapping each other and growing faster than if you isolated. All right, so this is grade 6, same thing, growth in all levels of language. And here I've color coded it to really drive home the different levels. The blue is the strong language has increased. We had no strong language in the pre, in the post we have a ton. The purple are conjunctions that are showing you the far more complex syntax. And the structure, this is actually a 5-paragraph essay, and you're only seeing the top half. Same student. After a few weeks of instruction in the Worcester Public Schools in a high, free, and reduced lunch, this is the growth that our kids can make with evidence-based instruction. This is a school with high turnover, and yet the teacher took this on and saw this incredible growth. All right, quick shout out to the federal government and the different levels of research. Since this is Reading League, we're going to touch on research for just a quick minute and then get right into the classrooms in Reading League style, grounded in evidence, but focused on practice. There are 4 levels of research that can back a practice. The practices that I'm sharing with you today meet the highest level. They are backed by randomized controlled trials. And we have our own data that shows that they do, in fact, translate to schools. We worked with 98 schools. We tracked all the data, and we found significant gains in the schools as they were using these approaches. One tiny little deeper dive into the research. I just have to shout out the incredible work of Dr. Adria Truckenmiller. What you're looking at right now is new research. She's begun publishing on it. And she's looking at what are the strongest levers that we should be hitting when we teach. At the very top is TIDE, which is text structure. Topic, information, details, and text structure. Having strong text structure, all those elements present, is the biggest bang for the buck. Now, people will say, but I use Oreo, I use CER, all good, all the same thing, doesn't matter. Any way that you name text structure, it's all good. But just be sure that your kids know text structure, and you're in for a real treat in the next webinar in this series where you're going to learn a lot more about text structure, but text structure is everything to reading and to writing. So you want to make sure your kids have text structure. Next is word complexity, and I'm going to show you a trick we have. I'm very excited to share with you. I've got a little video on it on how to increase the use of academic language. This is not the language we use every day with our friends. It is almost a dialect or another language. Our kids need to learn it and use it, and it follows different rules. When they learn it and use it, their essays are beautiful, and they're rated as far more proficient. So, academic language, and the way she defined this is 7 letters or more. Imagine that. Now, can a word like chaos also count? Yes, you're going to count that. You're going to teach that. Your kids are going to use that. But she had a definition. She scored a zillion essays, and she found that those that had a higher density of academic vocabulary were significantly rated as higher quality, more so. Then word accuracy, spelling, very important. Make sure we have our spelling lessons happening. Typing fluency, very important. And then, interestingly, sentence accuracy. And I'm going to show you a trick for how you can practice sentence accuracy with your own content. Was found to be a significant predictor. Sentence complexity was not. So while I'm all for those conjunctions, they're not the front runner. And our energy is better spent initially in really pushing text structure, the deeper thinking, still teaching syntax. We can't ignore it or avoid it. And I'm going to show you how you can teach it. But getting into the long, convoluted, complex sentences, she was finding wasn't the bigger predictor, it's accuracy. And our kids struggle with that. And so the syntax lessons are incredibly important. Okay, that was our little deep dive into the research of Dr. Adria Truckenmiller. Highly recommend looking her up. She's doing cutting edge work. All right, now we're going to dive into the practice guides distilled to one slide. The goal that is the front runner in the world of evidence-based practices is going to feel like it's kind of coming there from left field, but it is to develop self-regulation. That is what the research has been looking at for 50 years. We want self-regulated writers. Think about it. Writing is a solitary, self-directed activity. It really is. So it kind of makes sense that we would want to develop self-regulation. So everything we're teaching, we want our kids to be able to use it independently. So the first settled science across both practice guides and every single study that I know is kids need to understand and use the writing process. They need to understand that writing is a process and it's not a one and done, and planning is incredibly helpful. So here you see the writing process. Then you want to give your kids tools to be able to do each step in the writing process. So we have a little toolkit. This is just the beginner's toolkit. As our kids get more and more advanced, we bring in more and more tools, and we're constantly refining and sharpening their toolkit. But this is where we start. While we're planning, we want to pre-read for the gist. More on that tomorrow, tomorrow. Then we want to pull apart the prompt to set our purpose, pick our ideas, use a text structure tool to organize, leverage sentence stems, frames, links, more on that in a minute, and then teach kids cups and arms for revising and editing. But this is the third pillar, which is the daily explicit instruction. And so while we're writing our gist, we can weave in explicit instruction in sentence formation and expansion. Again, shout out to the fourth webinar. Do not miss that one. Whatever the date is, pencil it into your calendar and make sure you're there. Very important to be explicitly skill building. I'm going to show you a broad stroke way. You're going to receive more on that. We want to teach note-taking, organization, sentence expansion, variation, cohesion. I'm going to show you how to do all that in the model that is coming next. And just a reminder, this framework of what to teach, again, it rests on self-regulation. So everything we're teaching, we want the kids to own it. We want to empower them. We want to let go of the bicycle, take off the training wheels, and let them ride without us. So we are preparing them to do that as quickly as possible through a gradual release. But a lot of teachers have told me there's nothing gradual here. You give these tools, you show them once or twice, and the kids are off to the races. All right. So that is the what. I cannot give a shout out enough to the importance of running your parallel explicit skills instruction in all the foundational skills. So if you're using UFly, Ebbly, you're using an HQIM that has skills instruction, whatever you're using, that needs to be happening in parallel. All right, so how do we get started? The first thing that we do is we collect a pre-assessment, and then we begin our power cycles. We have pre-assessments at our website, thinksrsd.com. Be careful as ThinkSRSD grows, sponsored sites are popping up that appear when you type ThinkSRSD, and just be careful that you're at the URL for ThinkSRSD. Our stuff is free. If you wind up on a page where they're charging money, that's not us. Our stuff is free. There is a free resources page, and we want you all to take advantage of that. Okay, so after you've collected your pre, what I showed you before that chart is the what. Now we're moving to the how. How do I bring this to my classroom? So I am actually going to go back just one to show you the pre again. These pre-assessments are all posted for free at thinksrsd.com. They are hugely road tested. You can go get them. You can use them. We encourage you. We get very excited when you do. My life goal is to scale these practices, and we're trying to get it all out there. All right. So after you've got a pre, then in one lesson, one and done, you're going to onboard the most well-validated tools for teaching writing into your classroom. These tools go back 35, 40, almost 50 years. If you use them, you are honoring the researchers who developed them. Carol Sue Engler created Power in 1986. That is 4 decades. Friends, please use it. Please bring it into your classroom. Just hang it up on the wall. Tell your kids this is the writing process. Highly evidence-based. All right. You're going to onboard Power into your classroom. You're going to onboard Tidal. Tidal came from Common Core in 2011 when Common Core came out and kids were writing informational topic, detail, conclusion. I coined TDC. We began using it. Researchers turned it into Tide and heavily validated it. It's probably the most well-validated mnemonic. Any mnemonic is fine. But this one is particularly flexible. So it's a nice one. We also appended the language box to Tide. By the way, if any of you are using Tide, please give me a good Tide. Tide, Tidal. Yes, Takesha, you are using this in your classroom because that was excellent. So we can tell you're well practiced. All right, so we're going to introduce this as Tidal. And the language box is something we appended very thoughtfully and carefully based on the work of Dr. Adria Truckenmiller and realizing that it's Tide, the text structure, and the language box that are the front runners. So if you're taking notes, it's Tidal, write down Tidal. I keep writing to everybody on social media who's posting, don't forget the L. It's very important, the language box. I'll show you why in a minute. So you're going to onboard these tools into your classroom, one and done, kids. Yesterday, we took a pre-assessment on penguins and that sad oil spill. And you all wrote a paragraph or an essay in response. Today, I'm going to show you a strong response written by another peer who had some tools. And you're going to get to learn these tools. So you bring it into your classroom. If your school already has a writing program, if you already have, this is something very simple that you can bring in, lay over it like gossamer, and it's very easy. And it is a huge bang for the buck. I've again spent 20 years lifting the hood of the car of all these writing research studies looking for what is the primary engine. And I'm pretty convinced it's Tidal. Easy, light lift, high yield. Just bring that to your classroom. If you're a coach, share it with your teachers. Just that will get you a little buy-in because they'll see quickly the power that using Tidal to plan before I write offers. All right, one and done. After you have shown an exemplar, shown tide, introduced power, color-coded the exemplar, here's where you see tide. Now they get it. Now they know that there's a structure and a process. And now you're going to model using these in front of your kids with them collaborating. You're going to walk them through power at the end of the week, feedback Friday. One barrier we faced is that the scoring is harder to get running in classrooms than the collaborative writing. And so we've been working around that barrier by pointing out that we should call it Feedback Friday, even if it doesn't fall on Friday, but make sure that we get to that stage. And by realizing that edit and revise is really entwined one and the same with scoring. We score for ourselves, we score to set our goals, and we score so we know what to edit and revise. So scoring is intimately connected and embedded in the power cycle. All right, here is a zoom in on these strategies, and then we're going to hop into Vermont and see how some Vermont schools are using these tools. All right, so just a quick zoom in. If you look over on the left, we write power across the top of our page. That is how we guide ourselves, keep ourselves on track. That is how we self-regulate. The mnemonics facilitate the self-regulation. They make it possible. They encourage it. All right, so the got this is the self-talk that students write at the top of their page as soon as they begin writing. It can be, we call it replacement talk now, so we get more buy-in from the older kids, and then we show them any sports leaders of the moment. My favorite right now is Simone Biles at the Olympics saying, I've got this, before she steps out onto the floor. So very important to psych ourselves up before we go. Then we have our kids pre-read for the gist, write a quick main idea statement. So we know that they've got they've got the mental model, the schema of what they've just read. We can check. They're building it right then and there. If they don't have a mental model yet, that's the foundation. Think of Bloom's taxonomy. That's basic comprehension. Then we can move higher. Then we have our students pull apart the prompt using the do what. And the do what helps us pull apart the prompt so we know what to do. There are more advanced mnemonics like TAP, and we teach those as soon as they get familiar and acculturated to, I need to pause at that prompt and I need to really think about it. All right, then we have our kids pick their ideas. I'm using a Jason Reynolds, As Brave as You, a beautiful, beautiful novel excerpt for this example. So the child has pulled out some thoughts, turns them into a Tidal planner. How many of you have, because I did for a long time, if you build an outline with a student, say, great, now go write it. I remember doing that. I remember handing it to a student and saying, now you're all set. I did not understand the challenge of going from an organizer to a piece of writing. If we just model it and scaffold it, it becomes infinitely easier. And remember that as you're modeling this and practicing this, you are also doing your syntax instruction and your syntax work. Warm-ups. I had to do full syntax lessons for 20, 30 minutes for multiple weeks before I could then move it to a warm-up and a continued skill building for my kids who struggled. And that was in schools that had high free and reduced lunch, kids with developmental language disorder. Any kids with higher syntax needs, I had to blow up and spend more time on syntax. For my gen ed kids, it just had to be part of the routine. It is the missing component. I remember having this awakening. I had come from Lucy Calkins' writer's workshop. I learned a lot of rich material there. But I remember having this awakening and thinking, like, somebody put baby in the corner. Like, how is it that we ignored syntax? Like, it's so central. How is it that we weren't teaching and focusing and paying attention to it? So it is incredibly important. Teach it with all the other elements that are so well validated. Then after your kids have drafted, we're not done yet. You're going to self-score, color code, meet with a peer, read it, go over it, and then you're going to go back and edit and revise it. And now you've done your power cycle. And on Feedback Friday, we're going to score an exemplar, one of yours, somebody from our class. We're going to put it up on the doc cam. We're going to score it together. And then we're going to score a below level and try to bring it up together. And this is the cycle that the practice guides are pushing. And just trailer alert, we're going to talk more about this, but we do need to do at least 10 of these together as a class, not full collaborative, but collaboratively for parts, and at least 10 scoring as a class before the kids have the skill set to be able to work independently. A lot of them move faster, but it does take about 10. All right, shout out to Coventry, Vermont. I don't know if Coventry is in the house, but they have done some phenomenal work with bringing this into their school district, and they saw a really nice gain on the Vermont State Assessment. I think it was about 18 points increase on your Vermont State Assessment after just 1 year of doing this work. So shout out to Coventry. Here you see really a Monet of an implementation. People start in different places. The implementations go beautifully. This person just hit the ground running. Look at this beautiful tide. It has the do what broken out at the top. So you can see they attacked the prompt first. It has a language box down at the bottom. So incredibly important. And jot talk. There's a million things going right. They're not writing in full sentences. How many of you have seen your kids write in full sentences on a planner? Yeah. And then they're tired out and then they think they already wrote it. We really teach explicitly, hard and heavy, how to do the jot talk. And it tremendously lightens the burden. And then they haven't committed to their sentences. So when they go to create their sentences, they have the mental space because they've got their idea held. And now they can play with syntax and they can use those rules you've taught them. So having this as an intermediary before they go and turn their ideas into syntax just lightens the load and enables them to pull up and use the beautiful syntax work that we hope you'll all be focusing on if you don't already. And this is, I believe, a third grade student. Look at that self-regulation. Look at the picture up at the top of the tide. The child has written that and is checking it off as they go so that they know where they are, what they're doing. And I believe this is early year, third grade, and it's science writing, which is really hard to do. Really, it's the hardest kind of writing. And look at that ending. I love it. One thing we have noticed when we teach this process to our kids is that it takes the sting out of writing. And we start to see hearts appearing, and I love this. We start to hear that writing's our favorite time of the day. So that's a live action sighting coming to you from Vermont. I do have a couple more Vermont samples, but I do just want to step back and give you context for how you would run these cycles. The cycles run all year. In the younger grades, they're running every week, and then you might do an essay or a project later in the year. In the upper grades, you're toggling between quick writes, exit tickets, short writes. Maybe you do 3 short writes on Malala, on how she, and then you do an essay on Malala, drawing from those 3 writes. Breaking news, Massachusetts is changing and we're not going to have essay writing 3 to 5 anymore. We're just going to have the extended paragraphs, constructive writes. We're actually really excited about that because if teachers move to that, it's more chances for kids to goal set. You do want to have those short writes every week so the kids can say, here's where I'm at. And then the next week they've improved. As I shared, my background is Lucy Calkins. I learned a ton from her that I'm very, very grateful for. She got me away from worksheets. but we would spend a long time on one write. And at the end, I wasn't quite sure who really wrote it, whether it was me and all my feedback or the student, but there was a long time, and I'm not sure the child really owned it in the end. This was this was a whole different world for me. The idea of rapid cycle repeated writes and writing in response to what we read, which I just want to give a quick shout out to. That was not an easy turn for me. My writer's workshop had been writing about personal narratives. When the nation changed in 2011, 2012, I was kicking and screaming, no way, not me. I'm doing my personal narratives all year. What changed me was I was forced, my school was doing it. And I began to see my kids' language, syntax, content dramatically raise. Before we were writing about text, we were just doing personal narratives. I could separate my kids with DLD, with higher free and reduced lunch. They would be in a different pile because I could see that the language might not be as strong. After we began writing in response to what we read in these kind of rapid fire cycles, couldn't tell anymore because my kids were drawing from the text to find their vocabulary, to mimic the syntax, to build their conceptual reasoning, and suddenly they're writing. And when I saw the equity piece, that's what changed me. It was not a mandate on high from the federal government. I was going to do what I believed was right for my kids. But when I saw that this really had value for my kids, that is what switched me. So I'm a big proponent. I wasn't before, but now I am of these just because I saw huge gains and I saw confident, happy writers. All right, as promised, I said we would talk about the magic of 10. We're moving this from the teacher leader led to the student led. We're even going to teach our kids how to begin to notice syntax, pay attention to it, and begin to self extend after syntax is the hardest and takes the longest to teach of all the levels. So that is going to be ongoing. The gradual release there may be a little slower, but we do want to get to gradual release. And we find that after 10 collaborative writes and 10 scoring, our kids become astonishingly self-regulating. And that's when, I don't have a scientific word for it, but that's when we see the magic pixie dust. I didn't have a word for it when every April I would get these calls from coaches or emails and they're crying and saying, no, not one student was stuck and had to reach for the tissue box and crying, not one. And then in September, I'd get these stunned responses that all 16 of my kids passed. Now they're not at advanced and they can get there and they may not be the highest level of proficient. They can still improve, but just teaching this self-regulation, giving these tools is a huge bump up. All right, I'm gonna move in now. I'm wondering if you have anything you noticed, anything you wonder. I'm just going to give a quick processing point. If you have paper, feel free to jot down in your notes. Anything you notice, what is sticking out to you? What's the gist? And whatever's crystallizing, feel free to share into chat. If you want to directly tag Brenda Warren or Doreen, if you have specific questions you want answered, but otherwise this is just a processing point. I'm going to carry on unless if Brenda or Doreen feel that I should answer a question now.
There's maybe one quick question from Linda. She says, I've never understood why we look at the exemplar after the student writing and scoring.
Love that question. We get it a lot. We've tried to clarify it. You're going to collect a pre, no exemplar. You're collecting a piece of writing from your kids. Any topic, we have free topics and texts at our website. Collect the pre. After the pre, not before, after, we show them what a strong piece looks like after. One and done. Now you're going to go into collaborative rights. They have not seen the exemplar. They read the text, they see the prompt, and you construct the exemplar together, increasingly independently. At the end of the week after, then they see a peer exemplar. Does that answer the question?
Mind if I
Lucy?
just open my mic?
Sure.
That's fine, Linda.
Okay, so we started doing this last year and baby steps here. But like I said, it just makes more sense in my brain that we would show them an exemplar before so they know what good writing looks like. Why are we doing it after each cycle
We
instead?
do show it before, but we show an exemplar on a different topic
Okay.
so that they see what strong writing generally includes. Tidal, we mark it all up and we say, now we're going to write about a new topic using these tools and replicating the quality, the structure, the elements you saw in the older one.
Okay, so when we are showing the exemplar, it really is leading into the next power cycle.
Yeah, because the first time you show it, it's to set them up to do a collaborative write. And then at the end of each collaborative write, you show an exemplar and they love the exemplars. They hold on to them. I remember the first time I did this, I'm a purger and I threw everything away. And the next day my kids were like, no, we want that exemplar. I'm like, it's a different topic. And I realized that they had extrapolated that they should be looking at it for the structure and the components. So they really like seeing them. Thank you.
Okay,
And then
thanks.
another question has to do with the power cycle. Deanna asks, how do you get kids to speed up to that output level in 4 or 5? Her students love to keep going and going, and it takes 2 weeks for one power cycle.
I'm glad that they love to keep going and going. You've opened up Niagara Falls, and I think these tools are critical. The power cycle tools, they really free them up, but I know what you mean. I have seen that too. And some kids are just more thoughtful processors, and it takes them much longer, and they don't want to stop. I was letting those kids, I'd take a quick phone shot, let them take it home and finish it because they were so invested in it. The short writes, I would move to short writes, but I know a short write can fill a whole page. Shoot me an email and we'll troubleshoot it with you. It's not a bad problem to have that they like to write. Any others? All right. So the power cycle to onboard into your classroom has 3 parts. And I'm just going to show you 1 or 2 slides on each so that we have a little bit of time at the end for some Q&A. But there are 4 things you want to do. The first is lesson 0. We needed a name for it, so we named it lesson 0. That's your pre-assessment. It's not quite a lesson yet, but that's your collect a pre. Lesson 1, one and done, onboard all the tools, show a strong response to the pre. Now they see an exemplar. Lesson 2 and 3, repeat. Lesson 2 is do a collaborative write. Lesson 3 is teach scoring, and those become your power cycle. So these are the 4 things you want to do to bring this right into your classroom. So you're going to first launch the power cycle by collecting a pre. These pre's are listed there at the Think SRST website. At the end, you're going to do a gist. A gist is how we've been smuggling in our syntax practice. It's not enough. You will need more syntax instruction, but it's how we've been smuggling it into the power cycle by having our kids write a who, did what, when, where, why, what happened. Shout out to Nancy Ebert. I learned from her the importance of functional language, using terms, Charlie Haynes as well, just using the terms for what they do rather than the abstract grammar terms right away. We can pair them. We can use them together. That's another plug to attend the syntax webinar. You'll learn more about that. But we have our kids writing up who did what, when, where, why, what happened, using the functional terms. We put them on magnets because we're now going to, over the year, write the gist differently every day. And we're going to open with a subordinating clause. And this is where we're going to get them fluid in multiple frames. Here are kids daily practicing syntax. And I'm going to keep going because that is posted on our YouTube channel and we can share it with you. You do begin to fade the functional terms or use them concurrently with the former grammar terms, but you're doing it together. So the who becomes, the who, the noun. The did what becomes the did what, the verb. You're using them together to pair the meaning with the function. All right, that is collect a pre, slip in your gist. Then you will introduce the core tools. You are here, you are lesson 1 and done, showing a pre, showing an exemplar to the pre, but next you're going to dive in and write about a new topic. Here's a chart, but I'm eager to get to this one. This is from Vermont, Coventry, Vermont. Yay. I thought this was a beautiful little innovation. Teachers are so creative. They have fun with this. They make new ways that they can introduce. But this is how it's being used. This is one from Alaska, which I love because they're writing about a local topic. If you have a big boxed national curriculum, CKLA, HMH, they're beautiful. You also want to write about local issues, water issues in Vermont, whatever. Work that in, place it naturally fits as science and social studies. But you can be teaching this across all disciplines. Very important to honor the local. All right, so those are just examples of color coding, kids color coding, little ones. We start all the way down in kindergarten. Teaching text structure, they get it. It meets your kindergarten standard of name a topic, supply some facts. Boom, you've introduced this, check that off, you've done it. Collaborative writes is where you now model actually using the tools.
Oh, did we use all our words? Yeah. Okay. Let's cross off what we use so we know what we use.
The end.
Do we have hut?
Yes.
Do we have enchanted?
Yes.
Nice. Did we use this one?
I love that so much because she's check it off. She's using her Tide planner, but she's also making sure that the kids included their L box in their writing. We cannot assume anything, no assumption-based teaching. We have to explicitly teach, model, and practice until they do it. Some things seem so obvious to us, and then our kids show us that we need to be even more explicit. Here's a kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher joining the fun, Worcester, Mass, not far from you. This I love because it touches on my workshop roots. She's doing writing about rich content. She's building knowledge. The kids are writing in response, but they're self-selecting who's ready to go off and write on their own. And that's like my workshop roots, that there is a place for it. Mark Seidenberg says, don't throw it all away. Just do the explicit instruction up front. Keep that going all year. But there are elements down the road where it makes sense to let kids decide I'm ready to go write on my own. And that's where the self-regulation can kick in. We were just doing it too soon and leaving out the explicit. Here's how we weave this together with your foundational skills instructions so that we integrate that with our collaborative rights. Kindergartners, 4th graders, 8th graders, we're doing it at all grade levels, across languages. Scaffolds must have an expiration date. If you introduce stems, you need to get rid of them like right away too. Have your kids memorize them, internalize them, use them, and then ban the ones they're overusing. These are a temporary scaffold. Zaretta Hammond has a beautiful podcast out right now. It's on The Main Idea is what the company is that's interviewing her. And she speaks about writing cannot be fill in the blank. It needs to be higher order. Stems need to facilitate the deeper work, not replace it. So let them memorize a few stems, but then ban them and create new ones and let them become stem hunters. so that they begin to read with a writer's eye. My bookshelf is my greatest teacher, ultimately. We have songs, T-I-D-E, tide. We use information. Anyway, she's got great songs. All right. And we are wrapping up. The last piece you want to keep in mind is to teach scoring. If you're taking notes, jot down, teach scoring, model it, make sure they do it. I'm a teacher. I know what you're facing. I had 31 kids. It's a little, you do what you can do. But I would have a pile of scales. A kid would say, I'm done. I say, color code, score, go score with a peer. Like, not everybody always gets to scoring. Every week there's a fire drill snow day and I didn't get to scoring, but next week I will. Scoring is just incredibly important. It's what teaches the standards language. Do not bring the language down to the kids, bring the kids up to the language. So we start with rockets, we show a scale, and then we have detailed scoring guidelines. This is all free. It's all free. We post it, we give it away for free on our website. A mistake has been teachers keep trying to kid-friendlyize these. Stay at the rockets if you need to, but then build the language into the rockets, but don't bring down the language. We need to bring the kids up to the concepts in the scoring scales. Took me decades. It was this year, after 20 years, that I realized, holy mackerel, as I walked by a classroom and a kid was saying, all right, I need to do my detailed examination. I don't want to state the obvious. And he was saying out loud the words from our scales. And I thought, the scales are what take it to level 2. The scales are what enable them to self-regulate at a deeper level. I'm talking to Vermont. Like, you have a rich history in writing instruction and deep thinking I used to go to Vermont PDs on writing. You're going to want to get to level 2. You're going to look at Power and Tide and say, okay, it's up and running. What now? The scales and the language on them are what carry you forward and continue to deepen. Remember, you have to collect the pre, because that becomes the anchor that you anchor back to show the kids their growth. Why do we collect the pre? So the kids can set their goals. Is not for us. A baseline. I wrote a book on differentiated instruction. Don't buy it. What you need to do, it was 15 years ago, let it alone. It's going out of print, I hope. Kids need to self-differentiate. All good for us to differentiate. Please don't go off and say Leslie said don't. You should, we can, but anybody who knows it and has done it, it's hairy, it's real world. But when the kids self-differentiate, that's when I was like, whoa. And how do they do that? You collect a pre, they self-score it, they score their next pieces, and now they can set their own goals. And you've got 23 goals across 23 students. So here are kids self-scoring. They're so excited to do it. Watching their growth. This is a teacher who was just getting started, and she was putting up her journey on our Facebook group, and I was sending her tips. I said, 5th grade can do better. They can do more. They can write more. She says, early in the year. I said, okay, but remember, 5th can go higher. And she did. She got them really high. You can see her self-talk there. Love it. What do you not see here? What's missing? There's no teacher. The kids are self-regulating. Kindergarten growth, detailed examination growth. This is a video that's at YouTube, but it's kids talking about, look how much I've grown. So again, I'm going to end where I began with the self-talk. Very important for kids to be writing self-talk, using it every single day, particularly at scoring. Changes the brain. How we talk to ourselves not only activates different parts of the brain, our brain builds up over time to be more positive. You can make charts of replacement talk. And what it does is it builds self-efficacy. So again, these are videos that are all at our website. I wanted to use the last minute or two to see if there are any questions. This is how we roll out the writing process and the practice over the year now. I used to start with personal narrative. Now I do a little personal narrative over a week, and I do a bigger one in the spring. but we're using Tide across all areas. Oh, reading and writing used to live in separate worlds, separate blocks, and never shall the twain meet. As the world moved forward, we tried to blend them. It was messy. What we arrived at is in our literacy block, the beginning of the week should be reading heavy and the end of the week should be writing heavy. So we're running our power cycles all year. We're churning them out. Teaching these tools wakes up our executive functioning skills. This is a joke. I wrote a book on executive skills. I was living, breathing, eating it every single day. And one morning I woke up and I thought, there's a whole army in there and we're not waking them up if we don't give them tools. And idle hands mischief make. Our executive skills will go off and do things we don't want them doing if we don't give them tools and guidance. All right, so just to wrap up, this is the power cycle. Free materials at our website. I believe we can turn 24 into 100 of the kids that we test. I've seen it happen in schools. We can get there. Teach the frameworks, get your kids to independence, and change how they learn. Get them to a point where they can use writing to build their learning power. You've got this. You're going to go off now, try some of this, and make writing easy for your students. Here's how you can find us. We are at thinksrsd.com, free materials, and we have a Facebook group. If anybody's in the Facebook group and wants to drop that, free. We now have people getting started just in the face. I saw somebody post, so I tried it in my classroom. That is the dream of our federal government, who has poured millions into researching this for 40 years, gotten almost nowhere, and now all of a sudden Facebook posts are what are enabling this to scale. Like, who'd have figured, but very exciting.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Laud. That was a lot of information and very useful information. We do have a couple questions. One of them is, how do they get the gist if they cannot read properly?
They need to read properly. Stop the trains. Do your foundational skill work. That is the most important work. Yeah, they absolutely need to have those have your read alouds happening. You're going to hear tomorrow how this can be done orally, but I would allocate the majority of my block. If I'm an upper grade and I'm seeing them tier 2, 3, the majority of my block is going to go to the gateway schools with some dedicated. But how do we do it if they can't read, if they can't pull it off? We're doing it orally. But like, all the alarm bells are going off in my mother of a child with dyslexia brain right now. Like, it's important.
And then we do have a few more. Are you okay stating a few more minutes? Okay.
Sure.
Does anyone use any great videos teaching kids about how this all changes the brain?
Teaching kids how it changes the brain. Yes. If you shoot me one, I have a 2-minute video that does talk a little bit about that. Oh, Mojo Dojo. I used to play it for my own child who has dyslexia and would come home with heart-wrenching stories that I will not go into. And it was the hardest thing about being a mother, but he would come home defeated. And he was a wall hugger. He'd get to school and hug the wall and refuse to go in. And I was pulling out all stops, doing everything I could at home. And I played Mojo Dojo for him. And then he learned how to use positive self-talk because he understood how it impacted the brain. If anybody can find the link, it's a popular one. It's lovely. It really stays with kids.
Then someone else asked, if a genre of writing repeats in our curriculum, can we use their final from a previous unit as the pre for an upcoming unit?
Yes. I'm pausing because the curriculum companies are moving forward. There is hope and promise that they are getting better. But those writing bands were following Writers Workshop, and they were following something from Common Core, which logically sort of made sense, but then as it played out, it did not. We have a blog at our website that says, do not follow those 6-week unit on this, 6-week unit on this genre, 6-week unit, and then we're going to recycle. It's not how it works. We need to interleave. And I would just encourage you to have some flexibility around those writing bands. They're not following the research. They're not based in research. They are the writing band. The reading are much better. They're coming out of science, but the writing was really guided by workshop. And so when I hear like, it comes up here, I would recommend that you follow, I can put into chat the picture that I put up of doing informational writing all year in response to what we read in ELA, science, social studies, but just keep informational writing going all year, mixing in opinion as you go. But yes, there are all different ways to do pre-assessments. Just be sure that you show an exemplar right after. Always show an exemplar. If you collect a pre, you have to show the kids an exemplar the next day. That alone is a little evidence-based practice.
All right, I think we've hit our time, and I wanted to remind everybody we have two speakers tomorrow. Dr. Vijay Kumar is presenting at 10 a.m. and Dr. Steve Graham will speak at 1 o'clock, both at Eastern Time. And next week on Tuesday at 10 a.m., we'll have Dr. Margie Gillis and Nancy Eberhardt presenting what Leslie promised, a deep dive into syntax. And a note, I did post this in the chat, but all the presentation videos will be posted on our Reading League Vermont website under the Vermont Professional Resources tab. And I did put the link in the chat. And then also, if you need a certificate of attendance, just email me. I'll put my email again in the chat. I put it in there once, but and then I can send you a certificate of attendance. Find the chat here. Okay. Here's my let's see, my email. And otherwise, again, we thank everybody for being here. I know this was fantastic information, and we'll continue on over the next three presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for coming, and thank you, teachers, for all you do. It's noble work, and it's really important, and thank you for doing it.